The guy who I think was the best receiver in the transfer portal is at Penn State. Trebor Pena is now in Nittany Lions. Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions is here to discuss. I look at this and my first thought is it's another weapon for Drew Aller that he didn't have last year. I don't think there was a receiver in the room last year for Penn State as good or as capable as Trebor Pena. Now they've got a couple of guys that are like that. So that national championship narrative that you and I have discussed extensively here in the offseason, Zach, I think this is just one of those cherry on top, icing on the cake sort of pieces.
He helps. He gets Penn State closer to a national title, and that's what matters most. I can't go ahead and say that he's a superstar or that he makes this offense that much better, but it adds another weapon into the arsenal, as you mentioned. Just gives Drew Aller some extra help. Because where was this reaction when Kyron Hudson transferred in? I mean, that's a former USC wide receiver. He was just buried on a crowded depth chart, but he made an impact.
Well, I think you and I talked about him on the show.
You and I did, but I just think generally speaking, it's, Trebor Pena is going to be the savior. Kyron Hudson, I think, is a better option than Trebor Pena. Devontae Ross, I think, is a better option than Trebor Pena. He's wide receiver 3 in this group. I think Hudson. I think Ross. I'm amped up for Devontae Ross because I think Penn State can get creative with him. It's the speed. He looked really good in the spring football game. I get it. It's a controlled scrimmage. I understand. But Devontae Ross he's really taken a step forward since he's been on campus since transferring in. And that's something that Trebor Pena is going to have an uphill battle with, building chemistry, building a rapport, learning the playbook. He didn't get winter workouts. He didn't get a spring camp with Penn State. That stuff matters. And I know this might be, kind of an apples to oranges comparison, but we see how it worked out or didn't work out with Dante Cephas. I'm not saying that Trebor Pena's Dante Cephas 2.0 is that I still have my reservations about the move overall. I think it long-term for the team because the second half of the season will be better for Trebor Pena overall. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are some speed bumps along the way through the first few games just because of that lag with transferring in a little later.
So it surprises me a bit. I bet it surprises some people out there as well who hear me say he was the top receiver in the portal, and then to hear you say he's wide receiver 3 in this offense. This is a guy who, according to his head coach, was seeking in the neighborhood of $2 million to go back to Syracuse. And I don't know, we can get to that in a moment, but that doesn't seem like someone to me who would go to a destination where he's going to be wide receiver 3. I would think at the very least he's going to be the second leading receiver, or at least he expects to be for Penn State. Is that unreasonable?
I think so, because like I already mentioned with Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross already being in the fold, and Kyron Hudson is, based on the playbook, based on the scheme, the one, since he is the X receiver. Devontae Ross would be the Z receiver. There's also the tight ends that you got to compete with for receptions. Luke Reynolds, Khalil Dinkins. They're going to throw to the running backs quite a bit. Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen can both be very effective receivers in the passing game. So if anybody's anticipating that Trebor Pena is going to have this all ACC type of impact again, 80 receptions, 900 yards, 9 touchdowns, I'd say cut that in half, probably about 240, 45 receptions, 500 yards, 3-4 touchdowns maybe, just because this offense has so many players that are going to be fed the football. And this is going to be a run-first team. I think the reason that Pena ultimately settled on Penn State was, Penn State's NIL is in a much better spot than it was. So the fact that they were able to contend with Miami of Florida, USC, UCLA was entertaining a visit, right? So their NIL seems
they might have lost all their NIL dollars on Nico.
Right. So they're there, I suppose. But to go up against the Hurricanes, right? And there's the national title contending appeal. Do you want to be a part of a national title contending team? Do you want to be around other competent, capable football players? I'm not saying that USC and Miami of Florida don't have that. I'm saying Penn State has more of that. Drew Aller is projected as a first-round QB next year. You're going to be playing alongside other NFL talent across the board in that offense. So that's the appeal for Trebor Pena, but he was in an offense that was very pass heavy. He was the number 1 wide receiver. So I think those numbers are very much inflated against ACC competition. May I add, there's going to be an adjustment period for Pena. What I like about him, his veteran experience, he'll make the tough catches in traffic. He's an upgrade at the slot receiver spot. He is the starter, but he's not the first the second option. Among wide receivers, he's the third option. Among overall pass catchers, he might even be lower than that.
Well, the angle you presented there is an interesting one about, wanting to go play for a contender. Syracuse is going to be a pullback team this year. That much is clear. Yeah, they have Steve Angeli, the Notre Dame backup at quarterback, but that whoever really they were going to be able to put in their quarterback was going to be a downgrade from Kyle McCord, who was, I don't know, the leading passer in college football last year.
Because they threw a ton.
Yeah, they threw the ball a lot, and he was really, really good. So I think Syracuse is a pullback. So maybe there is a winning component. I just think a guy of his caliber, Zach, with how highly coveted the wide receiver position is, not just in football, but in the transfer portal specifically, I just feel like if he were wanting, it seemed maybe Fran Brown was, really running some heavy PR for his side of things, and this wasn't as much about money as it was made out to be from his vantage point, because I think this is a guy who could have gone to Miami, and I talked with Alex Dono of Locked On Canes last week, who said, look, we don't need him, but would certainly love to have him, and he goes to another place where it don't need him, but certainly love to have him because he's a talented guy. He gives you some competitive depth, and you're going to a winner. So do you think he's been a little misrepresented by Fran Brown coming out and saying, yeah, you're not worth $2 million a year, you're not Jeremiah Smith?
Well, it depends how we want to put fuel on this fire, because they just went and picked up Jonte Cook in the transfer portal, right?
That
or at
is
least
true.
They're projected to land where I don't want to speak out of turn there. I think they're projected to land him.
Yeah. It was, he was crystal balled, I think, by Nakos over at On 3.
So, okay. So you see where I'm going with this is that, Trevor Pena is an issue, but you go and get the likes of Jonte Cook, or you're projected to anyway. That's a point that at least needs to be made, or at least hashed out. I don't know the extent of it. I do find it intriguing that Fran Brown goes on a local radio station to kind of air some dirty laundry and just saying, hey, we wish him the best, but really putting everyone's business out there. For Penn State, hey, look, it makes the offense better. It gives them another competent, capable weapon, but he is not a number one receiver for them. He wouldn't have been a number one receiver at Miami, USC, UCLA. I think it's that national championship appeal. It's beneficial for everybody if you're willing to make that compromise that, okay, I'm not going to get to 1,000 yards like I did at Syracuse. And I think that's why Pena, because Pena went to Penn State first, made his visit, but then said, I'm going to open myself up for other options. I'm going to have other open dialogue here. And then came back to Penn State because he was weighing his options. And I think at the end of the day, figured out that, okay, Penn State's just best suited for me in terms of NIL, any championship aspirations I have for my final season, and getting just more NFL prospects, because that was something that was valuable to him. How can I improve myself as an NFL caliber wide receiver? And he chose Penn State.